Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today, we're going to talk about a new album that's released by OCP. Forgive me, my Spanish is really bad. I'm still learning. But in English, it's called Grace and Love. It's a bilingual songs for liturgy. I have the pleasure of having three guest composers who's actually going to be a guest of ours today. And we're going to talk about the particular album, Bob Hurd, Jaime Cortez, Eleazar Cortez. So we're going to put those guys on in a few minutes. We're going to take a break real quick, play a word from my sponsor, and be back in a moment. You listen to the Core Business Show.
You're listening to the Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed, with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com. Welcome back to the Core. Once again, here's Tim Jacquet.
Again, welcome again to the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today, again, we're going to talk about grace and love. And I guess we're going to start with the bios on a couple of the composers. They're going to take a minute and tell us about themselves, and then we'll dive straight into the album. So, Bob, you first.
Hello, everybody. This is Bob Hurd, and I'm delighted to have been part of this project with my friends Jaime and Eleazar, Gracia y Amor, or Grace and Love. I'm living in Claremont, California, recently moved from San Jose, and I've been collaborating over the years with both Jaime and Eleazar, and so this is a fruition of a long-term working together, and we're really very excited about it.
Wow. Okay, next.
Yeah, I'm Eleazar Cortez, and I was born in Mexico, Michoacán, and I came to California in 1971. I've been writing music for the church for a little while now, and I've been pushed by Jaime and by Bob to write bilingual music, so now I'm part of this project.
And I'm Jaime Cortez, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm actually in Mesa, which is a suburb of Phoenix, and I've been doing ministry of music for the Catholic Church for about 20 years, and have had a wonderful professional relationship with Bob Hurd and with Eleazar Cortez. And we have the fortune of being able to work together in this project and put it together to do a little bit of additional music to bring together the Spanish-speaking and the English-speaking cultures of the United States through worship, through this bilingual music. So it's a great day for us, and it's also good to be in this radio show.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the project. And ironically, I met Rudy in the Dallas conference, I think he had last April, and say, hey, I'm getting ready to inherit a Spanish choir. And I don't speak any English. He said, hey, don't worry about it. The music will speak for itself. And so far, almost an entire year, we grew the group into 60 people. And I'm still rusty on Spanish. I'm still getting there. But somehow I'm learning a lot from what I learned from the workshop, which I thank you guys from OCP. And it has worked wonders. And we have a band and a choir of 60 people. So,
wow, that's great.
Really, yeah, it's really working. And I survived. It's almost been a year. So you keep pushing the products out and we keep buying it. I guess let's dive into this particular project itself. How this project came to be? Anybody want to start with it?
Well, this is Bob speaking, and I'm sure Jaime and Eleazar can chime in. We were at a conference of composers about 5 years ago, and Jaime and I collaborated on Somos el Cuerpo de Cristo. It's about 20 years ago now, and we were thinking, a lot of that music has gotten a lot of use. It really seemed to work, but now we need some new stuff. So we started talking about that. Isn't that right, Jaime?
That's absolutely right. And I remember really well being in a little social evening, and we pulled Eleazar aside and said, okay, what is it going to take for us to get together and do this collection? So we kind of agreed there on how we were going to split it up. And I remember that you said you were going to email us some information of some scriptures that we were going to use. And we went ahead and started taking off on the project.
Yeah, I remember also. Yeah, we were in a little room taking a break, and we started talking about what's next. And as I said before, I write mostly in Spanish, but every time that I get in touch with Jaime and Bob, they have worked really hard on bilingual music. So I said, yeah, it would be interesting for me to join you guys, and I did.
One of the challenges, really, you guys are on 3 different time zones. One is in the East Coast, one is in Mountain, and one is in California time. How do you guys go and collaborate? Is technology was the catalyst of that?
This is Bob speaking. Actually, we're all sort of in the western part. Jaime's in Florida right now, but he's in Phoenix, and Eleazar and I are in California. But really, I think, and I see what the others think about this, I think the most valuable time we had was when we all got together in person. We would work on pieces of music individually, or there were opportunities, for example, for Jaime and I to be together at a conference and work on a piece of music right from scratch together. But for the most part, we each worked on pieces, but then we came together and we looked at each other's pieces, we gave suggestions, stuff like that, and there's just no substitute for that.
I think, though, that this Jaime, I think that the aspect that Tim is asking is, how does technology help us? And whenever we couldn't be present together. And so certainly I agree with Bob that being together in a circle playing music was the best. So for the times that we couldn't be there, we used the computers. Sometimes we did Pro Tools. We used the computer also I use a program with recording, so that we can get a little bit of like a small demo, so that we can, maybe we could, Bob or Eleazar would send through email, through maybe a software program like Finale would send a chart, of what they have sketched, and I would take it and put it in Pro Tools, sing it just as a demo tape, then compress it into an MP3 file, send it back to them so they could hear it. That way we could also get a better idea how it would sound musically, in a recording situation. And then we would comment or say, no, this melody needs to be changed this way. I remember very well having switched some melody that Bob had written, and then Bob giving me the feedback, we need to put it back where it was, and this and that. So sometimes we did certainly use the computers and the internet and recording programs, to be able to bring to reality some of these songs when we were geographically apart.
When you go back into the thought of the project itself, and did you guys kind of divide up the responsibility, say, hey, I'm going to do a slow or fast song, or I'm going to do one in this particular style? How you guys came together and trying to pick which songs or which styles you actually going to present on the album or lead?
To me, it was very simple because Bob prepared some of the themes, like why don't we write about gathering songs, preparation of gifts, communion songs. He gave us like ideas of what we could do, and each of us choose what we wanted to write about, but we didn't choose the rhythms or style, anything, because I just did my homework. I chose the themes that I wanted to write about, and then I told them, this is what I'm writing. And basically, everything happened when we got together in San Jose at Bob's house. We spent some time there discussing and correcting and deciding, and everything started getting in shape right there. So to me, it was a simple process.
This is Jaime here. One of the interesting things is that all of us, have done much work in church, but we also have come from very different musical backgrounds. And so we have some common ground, but really our styles of executing, of writing, executing, and designing a song are very different and vary. So in that sense, it was really interesting because the three of us could be in a circle and we would, like Eleazar describing, we would propose a song from Eleazar and he would do it, and it just sounds so Eleazar Cortez. And then Bob would propose one of his songs, and it would sound so Bob Hurd. And so that, it was interesting that there was no need to make, like you make this kind of song, you make this kind of song. We kind of naturally all brought our own musical background and our influences and our styles to the thing. And then it was just a matter of blending a little bit of each other's ideas. And even in the recording studio, as I mentioned it in other times, when we were recording the project, it was also, we were very open to the idea of receiving ideas from other people and from the three of us to say, well, how about if we speed it up a little bit? Or how about if we do it in this style instead? Let's try it in this way. And so we had agreed to not say no to any idea. And that also brought up different flavors to the whole project.
And this is Bob. I have to say, it was really challenging working with Jaime because, my songs would sound so Bob Hurd and Eleazar's would sound so Eleazar's and Jaime's would sound so Paul McCartney. It was just, we had to write better because of the quality of what he was doing. But really, that's the joy of this collection, I think, for each of us, is that it's so great to be part of such a diverse range of music, instead of it all being one way. It's a wonderful tapestry of different styles.
Which in a multicultural collection of music, that's one of the things we want to highlight, that different gifts are welcome and important, and they want to be showcased in a way that, that represent different parts of the world. So that was also very good for the collection.
Well, taking those particular styles, each person has a style that they really home in on themselves. Maybe if I'm in church, I play a certain way. Maybe if I'm at home, I play a certain way. Taking you guys' styles all together from saying that, hey, I have influence. I grew up with the Glory and Praise era, whatever, the folk. And, hey, I'm Santana, rock and roll. Hey, I'm in the middle. And Van Halen. These different styles and influence, when you sit there and go through a recording session, and so far you guys already met, how you actually put all of those pieces together?
Well, this is Bob speaking. I think, actually, we each have a number of styles. I mean, we each write different things depending on the text and then just the musical influences in our lives. So it's not as though there's a Bob Hurd style. I've written gospel style, I've written chant style, I've done these things, and it's true also Eleazar and Jaime. And I think, at least for me, I would say that the way I would write a piece, for me, very much depends upon the text. So that, I'm looking at the text and I'm trying to figure out how music can support this scriptural story, or even just the scripture itself. Is it a praise scripture, or is it a lament scripture, and so forth, like that. And then the other thing I would say is that we had decided early on that we wanted the overall style of this recording to be more like spirit and song, contemporary style, than a slightly more choral or traditional style. So that was we all agreed on that, and that affected the kind of sound that we ended up with.
Wow. With a producer, I mean to cut you off, any producer usually having in mind they're going to produce an album, overall, this is what I need to get at the very end of the project. With a producer on the project, and you got all three of you guys, did one particular thing in the sense of, hey, the producer has his sound that he wants, and you guys have your sound, and you guys compromise between the two, or since that's the fourth wheel?
It's a great question, and it was so. We all pitied the person who was going to produce this because, have to bring us all together and to say, no, we're going to do this. And so there had to be somebody who had great musicality, experience in the studio, and also, an ability to make a decision over us. And that was not an easy task, but Rick Modlin was chosen. He was from OCP, and we actually requested to have him with us, and it worked out terrific. I think that one of the important things that we early on in the recording process had agreed that no matter what, we were going to try different things, but that the producer of the album, which was Rick, was going to have the last say. And I guess in that sense, we were all also willing to follow his leadership in that case. And whenever we were going back and forth on an idea, he would have the ability and the permission from all of us to say, okay, let's stop now and we're going to do this. We're going to try this. And he would also have the last say on whether the takes were good or not. So in a way, we gave each other, that permission so that we wouldn't end up on arguing endlessly without making any decisions at all. It can happen when you have three artists in the booth, making decisions for the music. So it could become difficult, but Rick made it very easy.
This, in my opinion, I write my music, and of course I think it's good because I wrote it. But then when I go and collaborate with other people, it makes it better, a lot better. And to me, it was a blessing working with Jaime, Bob, and with Rick, because Rick is a great musician and he has a great vision, even though Spanish is not his strength, but he has great suggestions. And also, we really collaborated because Jaime had ideas for my music. We sang, the three of us, in one of my songs, and that was great for me because it made the song a lot better than if I had just decided by myself. And then also Bob asked me to do some parts for instruments, and that, I don't know, it was a bond special that I haven't felt when I go and record by myself, just the producer and me. It's kind of give us a bigger vision, a better vision when you have ideas from good musicians and good composers. So it was a great experience for me.
Wow. Let's take a break real quick and play one of the tracks real quick. I guess I'm going to give you guys a choice off the album. I have 8 tracks here. Let's take a break and play one of the tracks and then talk about the song.
Don't give us a choice. Rick is not here.
I try to be diplomatic,
Well, if you want to be diplomatic, let's find a Jaime Cortez song.
Okay, go ahead. Take one of each. Okay, so which one you want to play?
Oh, I would suggest that we play I Am With You Always. Yo estaré con ustedes will be my choice for Jaime.
Okay, tell us the story behind the song.
Bob asked me to come up with a song for dismissal at the end as a mission song, and so it is a song that just gives us the energy to go out into the world and make disciples of all the nations. So it's just a pick for the mission of the church.
Okay, no problem. We're just going to dive into it. You guys can take a break real quick, and we'll be back in a moment after we play this tune. Wow, that was powerful. Excellent arrangement. Thank you for sharing that with us. One thing, a question I really have, I think what I'm starting to know is with OCP, is it a challenge in writing text that's bilingual that you have to switch from English to Spanish? I know you have all Spanish, all English, and then bilingual. How do you actually put those pieces together? Because then you're dealing with different languages that has different sort of meanings with it. So how have you guys put that together like that?
Well, this is Bob speaking. I think we've learned something over the years, that if you're going to go back and forth between languages within a song, to do that really well, and Jaime really helped me to understand this better, each part, each language has to be complete. In other words, I can't just sing an English line and then halfway through throw in a few Spanish words that only give some of the meaning. You really have to think about, well, what are the people who only speak one of these two languages going to understand when they hear the song pass over into their language? So you sort of have this challenge of involving both languages, but in a way in which the meaning is really clear to both groups of linguistic groups. Now, some of them are going to be bilingual, so they'll understand both, but oftentimes in our parishes, we might have, an all Spanish choir coming together with an all English choir for for a bilingual celebration, and we can't assume that everybody knows both languages. So that's one challenge. And that's one reason why OCP we originated this, Jaime and I, this notion that maybe the song should be written in such a way that it can have an all-English version and an all-Spanish version and then a bilingual version. But I think on this project, we made a conscious decision that we didn't have to do that on every single song. As long as, you could have a bilingual refrain that was only bilingual, but then you'd have a complete set of verses in English or a complete set of verses in Spanish. So as you look at these songs, you'll find that some of them have options in all three languages, but not in every case.
And this is Eleazar. And also for me, main challenge is I'm very used to the accents. How do you pronounce the words in Spanish, but not in English? So sometimes I use words that don't fit the way you pronounce the way you say them. But that's when it comes the help of Jaime and Bob. They really help me on that. And also some of my songs are like that, just a piece in Spanish and a little bit in English. But those are songs that the refrain is really short. So you can repeat the same idea with different phrases.
Any examples that stand out to you that you can kind of point out regarding the accent?
Yeah, because let's say one of my favorite songs on this recording is one by Bob, Te alabamos, Señor. And in Spanish is Te alabamos, Señor. The emphasis is Te alabamos. And in English is we praise you. See, it's in the beginning of the phrase. So we have to work on that to make it sound good, not to just adapt the English to my Spanish or the other way around, adapt the Spanish to what we say in English. So those are little things that we as composers have to take so people don't trip on those accents. That's a good example. Te alabamos, Señor. Right there is strong accent. And in English is we praise you. It's in the beginning. So that's the challenge.
Wow. Talking about, Sumo, going back 20 years ago, I guess almost 20 years ago when you actually collaborated on that first project. Tell us how we have grown from when that album came out, We Are the Body of Christ, to where you are today. I know that you have a huge evolution between that particular period. Can someone compare to us from that particular project to where you are today and where you can see you guys going from this point on?
This is Jaime. I'll let Bob expand on this, but I'm going to say that at least in 20 years, the entire population of music ministers not only has grown in terms of the need of multicultural music and bilingual music, but also I think that the entire assembly in the country has become more sophisticated and a little bit more open to doing this kind of music. When we released Somos el Cuerpo de Cristo 20 years ago, it was still fairly new. And in a project of that magnitude, in terms of writing music for the liturgy for Mass in bilingual form, that were completely written in English and in Spanish and bilingual options, had not been done yet. That was the first project that came out like that. So it was a very new thing. What I remember from that time is that areas like Texas, New Mexico, California, Florida, New York were the ones that reacted and said, wow, we really needed this. Thank you very much. But now, we have 20 years have evolved into the Hispanic community has moved into almost every city of the country. And so this need is slowly becoming much for the entire nation. And with that means that more people in the English-speaking world have become exposed to that kind of music and sometimes have encountered in their entire year of worship in their church at least a couple of celebrations in which they have to be trying different languages. And so everything became more sophisticated. And even the music that we write now became a little bit, in terms of function, a little bit more specific. Then there became a need for music for weddings, for baptisms, for funerals that had both languages. And so the need Rome. I don't know, Bob, if you want to expand on that.
Well, yeah, I would just say that, especially on the coasts, one of the things that's kind of changed, at least where I am, is it used to be a big challenge to do a bilingual English-Spanish liturgy. And now there's a lot of music that wasn't there when we first started. We really did supply the first big amount of music for that. But now the need is almost more multilingual than bilingual. So on the West Coast, in the places where I've lived, there's a lot of Vietnamese Catholics, and so often you're faced with, you can't just do two languages when you're bringing everybody together for Holy Thursday. You've got to be prepared to do 3 or 4 languages,
Right.
and that's a lot harder to do well. And there's a lot less music for that, although that's an area that I think we've all done some work in. So that's a change. Wow. That's a change too.
Yeah, it's become a lot more sophisticated, and the need has become bigger. More towns in the nation have become multicultural, and especially in the Catholic Church. So the need of those specific times of the year, especially I'm thinking of at least Holy Week, Thanksgiving, those are natural in which we need, music in different languages, not only in Spanish and English, but now entering more Vietnamese, Filipino, and other languages.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think, one of the big reasons why this has happened is that these immigrant populations are very vibrant in their Catholicism. I mean, they're kind of the future of the church here. So it's not just a matter of kind of, begrudgingly accepting these other languages. This is really the energy in the church these days, is these immigrant populations. And so it would be really bad news to somehow not pay attention to that and be willing to serve that.
Right.
Well, we're going to play another track. So who's up next? Thank you for the comments. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Bob, choose one
Well,
song.
how about Eleazar was talking about De Alabamos, Señor. So
All right.
play that one.
Okay. And the title track is called again?
De Alabamos, Señor.
In English?
Well, it really only has a Spanish title. It's number
8 or
I think it's 7 or 8. De Alabamos, Señor.
Okay, let me look for that for a second. Let's go to another one and let her go ahead and load that one up. She has 8 here and I don't see it. So I can have her get that one real quick. In the meantime, is there another one we can choose from?
De Alabamos is number 10 on the CD if you're looking for it. Number 10.
Okay, tell us. Okay, no problem. Go ahead and play this one. And this one is written by
Bob Hurd and Jaime Cortez helped with the lyrics.
Great. So someone tell us a story about this particular track.
Actually, Jaime did the Spanish lyrics on this, except for the refrain.
Bob and I wrote this together in Texas, right? Didn't we, in Dallas or something?
That's right. And, I'm remembering now, Jaime also made some good suggestions on the melodic changes to this. The idea was to have a song of praise for the post-communion. We don't do much of this, but it's one of the things that the documents allow us to do, to have a general song of praise after communion when people are sort of have sat down. We have silence, but there's also the option of a song of praise. So that's what I wanted to do, with a kind of very simple song of praise, almost in a Taizé-like. Jaime, do you have any other?
It's one of the few songs that we're physically together. They're writing it from scratch, which was a really great experience to do something, from scratch together. So,
no wonder it's my favorite one, huh?
Okay, let's go. We're going to go ahead and dive into this one real quick, and we'll be back in a moment and within 3 minutes. Thank you guys for the comments on it.
Sure.
So guys, well, welcome back again to the Core Business Show. In taking this particular project and putting it in the hands of musicians with the arrangements, do you see that the tide is going to turn with the new generation of musicians, with music in general? For example, I never thought in my 25-year, 30-year history since 1980 that now I end up leading a all Spanish choir. By default, the person who had it was too much for them in band liturgy and music. They had to step in to take it. But actually, it's 1 o'clock. It's a full mass. It's coming behind another choir I've had. But as I start to see the new generation is coming in, helping add in some arrangements, do you see that now we're going to all of a sudden in the next few years that this new musicians that's coming in is kind of going to go and move us in a different direction, if that's making sense?
Ugh, that's a tough question.
You know, I'm already experiencing some of that in my parishes in this area of LA where I'm living, but it's kind of a negative thing in this sense that a lot of the younger musicians have grown up with sort of evangelical rock as their framework. And so there's an importation into Catholic liturgy of evangelical rock, which may or may not have much to do with the actual liturgical texts. And, the use of projecting lyrics on screens instead of having, the notation and the words in front of people. And a sort of style that it's catchy, but it's not anchored so much in the assembly as in the sort of soloistic talents of the singer, all of which makes sense in an evangelical context, but it doesn't translate well into English liturgy. So I'm not saying it's negative because it's a contemporary style or a rock style, because that can very clearly be written in an assembly-friendly way. But I think it's kind of ignorance. It's kind of, well, here's how the mega churches are pulling in people, so let's do the same thing with our youth and other people here in our parish. And the other part about that proposes a difficulty is often it's completely disconnected from the repertoire, the liturgical repertoire that has developed over the past 40 years. So, the interesting thing is what would happen if people with these same skills, rooted in the Catholic tradition, began writing, that contemporary music, but with the sense that the assembly is the center of the music, not the band. And we do have people in the spirit and song sort of category who've done that very well. I'm thinking of Tom Booth, for example. A lot of Jaime's writing is very contemporary, but it is very strongly assembly oriented. So he's pushing the edges for the rest of us in terms of a more contemporary style, but he's deeply rooted in that sensibility. So that's some of what I've been kind of running up against.
Do you think, what advice do you have for them? If they looking at to come into this new meet, for example, I have people that's coming up, real talented. What advice do you give them? What type of training do you think they should really have as a foundation?
Well, that's a huge question. But I mean, they really need to keep growing in their understanding of Catholic liturgy, especially as reformed by Vatican II, and the documents that guide it. All of which one of the formal requirements that all the documents talk about for liturgical music is the centrality of the assembly singing. So, but I don't think this is something you discover overnight. I think this is something you cultivate over your time as a pastoral musician. And if people attend the NPM or other conferences where workshops are offered, there's lots of opportunities for growth. But if you're just simply listening to your favorite evangelical rock and roll and then wanting to identify yourself with that and bring that into the Catholic liturgy, that's problematic, because we have a different understanding of worship than some of our Protestant brothers and sisters, and you can't just translate one into the other.
Wow. This is Jaime. I think one of the things that I would advise a young person will be that they need to be interested in their faith as a Catholic, and they need to study theology besides studying music. So one of the most important things is that when a person is starting to develop their faith and learning more about theology and learning more about liturgy, and the documents that Bob mentioned, especially at least the first document of Vatican II, which is the Constitution on the Sacred Liturgy. It's one of the writings, one of the letters that the bishops released from Vatican II, the Second Vatican Council. Plus, the document called Sing to the Lord, which is specifically for the musicians in the church. Those documents, they speak volumes about the intention of how music functions within a liturgical celebration. And so a musician of the church has to have and like Bob mentioned also, a period of conversion, transformation in which they begin to understand the function of music within the liturgy. And so they have to study a bit of theology, a bit of the history of the church, a bit of the documents that are released so that they can become a well-balanced musician for the Catholic world.
And my scene on this is every generation has their own way of expressing musically, even in the popular music. But a good thing about music is that it's changing all the time, but good music stays. So some of the hymns that are really strong and they have good theology and appealing melodies, they're gonna last. They're gonna last for some time. And other, I think there are too much music published that we use just a little bit and then you don't use it anymore. When I go to Mexico, the young people use electric guitars and today's sound. But people sing when you go back to old hymns and you can feel the church singing everybody because they know they don't need to read, they don't need to learn, they just know it. And they transmit that from your parents to children. And so I think we as composers, we just write hoping it will help congregation. We are, in some way, we are not responsible if music changes, if this is better, this is worse, or that's another thing.
Wow. We're going to move into our last song real quick. Any suggestions on the last composer?
Yeah, if you have By the Power of Your Love.
Okay, we have it, By the Power of Love. Tell us about the story.
This song, this is the only one that I have written before we planned this project. I already had it because our diocese was celebrating the 40th anniversary of the foundation, and they asked me to write something for communion, and I wrote this one. But of course, it was really rough. I got the benefit of showing it to Bob and Jaime, and they improved it a lot. So that's the story.
Wow. I'm going to play that, and then we come up with last comments, and I really appreciate it. We'll be back in 3 minutes. By the Power of Your Love. I have a question real quick before we get with closing comments. All the arrangements are available through OCP for all the instrumental and the background, the flutes, violins?
This is Cesar. Yeah, most of them are in the octavo. They have the main, like if you use flute, it's there, and then violins are there, trumpets. And some of the ones that didn't fit on the octavo, you can call OCP and they have the manuscripts.
Okay, perfect. Closing comments from, I guess, each one of you. I guess we can go back from the same order, alphabetical.
Okay, this is Bob. Thanks very much, Tim, for having us on your program. And
thank you.
I just say, we spent a long time putting this together, and then we spent an intensive time recording it, and I haven't listened to it for a long time. And hearing it again, it's like, wow, it's pretty good. I'm very happy with this, and especially to have been able to make this happen with Jaime and Eleazar.
This is Jaime. Terrific experience to work with these two gentlemen, and also with Rick, and thanks to us for helping us put this together and for allowing us to make it happen. I also thank you, Tim, for allowing us to give us this time so we could tell a little bit of the story behind the scenes. We are excited because the three of us will be together in Portland. We're actually going to be playing a concert to, in some informal way, do a little, like an opening, of this CD as it comes out to the market. And so we're going to be playing a show in Portland at the Church of the Ascension this Friday night with the three of us together, along with Rick and other stars there from Portland. Ana Betancourt will be there, and Rudy Lopez and Stella Garcia. And so it will be a great opportunity to be together and put this music and play it live. So it should be a wonderful experience. So that will be great. So all the very best to everybody, and hopefully the people from Portland will come out and see us.
And this is Eleazar, and I want to thank you for your time and for your kindness to invite us to speak about our music. You can see that we are excited about this collection, and we hope that it helps a lot of people in the church to find something that strengthens their faith and singing as a congregation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks, Tim. Talk to you another time.
And if they want to reach out to you, of course, you can go to OCP website. Do you guys have personal websites you want to share?
Don't
Facebook?
have one right now. It's down. Mine is down, but they can write me at OCP.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye. Again, this has been another production of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Thank you guys for listening. You can download this episode on iTunes and Blog Talk Radio. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet. For a free quote on equipment leasing and financing, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. And fill out the information to receive your free quote. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the Core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. Thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.